teacher Art. I will be teaching math to grade 8 and 9 for your online classes. The topic today is fractions. What are fractions? A fraction is a number that represents part of a whole. The word fraction comes from the Latin word fractio, which means to break. In other words, if we break something into smaller parts, for example, a circle, then each of those parts is represented as a fraction of the whole thing. Let's take a look at the circle. We can split it in half into 2 parts, or into 3 parts, or into 4 parts. And each of those parts is represented as a fraction of the whole circle. If we look at this circle, the question is, what fraction of the circle is shaded? And it's 1 out of the 2 parts, right? And over here, what fraction is shaded? 2 out of the total of 3 parts. And over here, what fraction of the circle is shaded? 1 out of the total of 4 parts. When we write a fraction, we have a number at the bottom and a number at the top. Each one of them has a special name. The one at the bottom is called the denominator, and that represents how many parts there are in total. And the top number is called the numerator, and that represents how many parts we're focusing on specifically. So for this example, we're specifically focusing on 1 out of the total of 4 parts. Okay, let's move on to adding and subtracting fractions. You can only add or subtract fractions that have the same denominators. So in this example, the denominators 2 and 3 are different, so we cannot simply add them. But over here, our denominators are both 4, so we could just simply add these 2 fractions. If the denominators are different, then you first need to make them the same before you can add or subtract the fractions. We make the denominators the same by finding the lowest common multiple, the LCM, of the 2 denominators. The LCM is the smallest number that both numbers can divide into. For example, the lowest common multiple for the numbers 2 and 3 is 6. We find this by writing out the multiples for 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and the multiples for 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and so on. And then we find the lowest multiple that they share, which in this case is 6. So the LCM for 2 and 3 would be 6. Let's try another example. What is the LCM of the numbers 4 and 5? So again, we write out the multiples and we see what is the smallest one that they have in common. In this case, it's 20. So the LCM for 4 and 5 is 20. Once we have found the LCM of the 2 fractions, we then have to multiply the fractions by something to change the denominators to the LCM. So for example, let's say we want to plus 1 over 2 and 1 over 3. The denominators are different, so we first need to find the LCM, and we know from the previous example that the LCM of 2 and 3 is 6. We then have to multiply each fraction by some number to make the denominator equal to 6. 2 times 3 gives us 6, and when we're dealing with fractions, when we multiply the bottom number, we have to multiply the top number as well. So we say 2 times 3, but we also say 1 times 3. And 3 times 2 gives us 6. And if we multiply at the bottom, we have to multiply at the top. So we'll be left with 3 over 6 plus 2 over 6. And when we're adding or subtracting fractions, we only add or subtract the top numbers, the numerators. The denominators will stay the same. So 3 plus 2 is going to be 5, and the bottom stays the same. So our final answer is 5 over 6. Let's practice with two more. The first one, 1 over 2 plus 2 over 5. So the denominators are different. First thing we do is we find the LCM. So we write out their multiples and see what is the smallest one they have in common. In this case, it's 10. So now we have to multiply 1 over 2 by something so that the 2 changes to a 10, and that's going to be times 5. So 2 times 5 and the 1 times 5 is going to be 5 over 10. And 5 times 2 will give us 10. So we say 5 times 2, and then we say 2 times 2. So we're left with 4 over 10. And now we plus the top two numbers, and our final answer is 9 over 10. Last example, 3 over 12 plus 7 over 20. We write down their multiples again, and we find the lowest common multiple, which is 60. So we have to multiply 12 by something to get 60. 12 times 5 gives us 60. So we times by 5 at the bottom, and we times by 5 at the top. And 20 times 3 gives us 60. And when we multiply the bottom, we multiply the top two. 7 times 3 is 21. So we've got 15 plus 21 is equal to 36 over 60. Okay, I hope this lesson has helped you guys if you've been struggling with this, or maybe you've just enjoyed it. I've added some practice questions for you guys that you can do after this video. And I've also added the link to a game that you guys can play to just practice and make sure you remember how to do this. Okay, have a great week, guys. I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.